Hello, everyone. My name is Monico Luis, and thank you for taking your time out of your day to come to my senior capstone proposal presentation titled Cultural Identities in Play, the Importance of Authentic Representation in Video Games. So, a little bit about me. I graduated Pearl City High School, class of 2021. After I attended Manua for a year, where I was actually pursuing a degree in computer science. However, I decided to transfer to UH West Oahu in fall of 2022, where I'm now pursuing a degree in creative media with a concentration in video game design and development. In my presentation, I'll be going over my thesis statement, as well as the objective and rationale my research conducted, as well as the plans and the significance of my project. So the thesis statement that I structured my research around was that video games have the power to shape players' perceptions of culture. This often perpetuates stereotypes, but it also provides opportunities for authentic representation of diverse cultures. So the objective of this research was to see how diverse cultures are portrayed in video games. As it stands, the current discussions surrounding diversity and ethnic representations have been like a touchy subject for a while now. But with the current social climate of America, I believe that authentic representation is needed now more than ever before. Video games, with its widespread influence, is a great platform for this. However, I believe that the industry seems to struggle with depicting ethnic minority groups in their games. So, why did I do this research? Well, I'm both a person of color and a gamer, so I'm deeply affected by these issues. In general, the lack of proper representation can change the perceptions of myself and my community. And as an aspiring game developer, it's important to me that I learn how to accurately portray cultures, including my own, in video games. So throughout the semester, I spent time analyzing how cultures are depicted in video games with an emphasis on Filipino culture. I took a look at existing portrayals and learned about common pitfalls, such as the over reliance on pre existing stereotypes, and learned pitfalls and successes that come with trying to represent ethnic identities in video games. So for my capstone, I plan to create a 2D visual novel game that aims to authentically portray Filipino culture. And by the end of the capstone project, I would ideally like to have a solid game and narrative design document. This game will be created through either Unity 2D, which I'm familiar with, or with Ren'Py, which is the game engine that specifically catered towards creating visual novel games. I chose this type of genre because it allows me to focus in on the storytelling aspect, which is one way that cultures are represented in video games, and it's something I covered in depth in my paper. This leads into the significance of my project, one of which is that though some video games are thoughtful with the representation of diverse ethnicities, a lot of them end up perpetuating stereotypes that hurt these communities. For example, during my research, I was able to briefly look into some stereotypes that were perpetuated on uh, of other ethnic minority groups in video games. And I found that Hispanic characters typically were portrayed as gangsters. Black men were typically portrayed as criminals or side characters in predominantly white spaces. And then Middle Eastern slash Arab characters were typically portrayed as terrorists or being highly militant. And these are only some of the stereotypes that I uncovered or that I found. And so this project aims to eliminate developers such as myself on how to accurately represent cultures within this medium. According to a survey of about 1,035 gamers in the US, it was found that at least 64% identified as white slash Caucasian. However, there is an undeniable 33% of gamers that identify as part of a minority group. And an analysis of the biggest games that was released from 2017 to 2021, which I believe was the research did about 90 games, and they only included characters or humanoid characters. And it was found that white characters outnumbered other ethnicities in video games. Though it's not far off from the statistics I mentioned previously, not all of these ethnic representations are authentic to the culture that they're trying to depict. So when presented with these disingenuous portrayals, it creates and reinforces biases for gamers unfamiliar with said cultures and people of that culture. This leads into the second significance of my project, which is that the video game industry is severely affected by the lack of diversity. As such, this causes the representation of ethnic minorities to feel off. This is because there aren't people of that specific community working on the development of the game. This project aims to prove that minorities do have stories that want to be told in video games, and hopefully this will inspire other minority game developers to portray their own cultures in the medium as well. Looking at more data in a survey conducted by the IGDA, which is the International Game Developers Association, developers answered a multi-choice question about the ethnicities that they identify with. This allowed them to take into account mixed backgrounds. And as you can see, 79% of developers identified as white, Caucasian, and European. But the statistic of developers that identified with only white, Caucasian, and European makes up 72% of that. This further cements the lack of diversity, diverse voices within the industry and highlights the need for such. So my main target audience for my capstone project are Filipino and Filipino American gamers, as I hope my game resonates most with them. And on the other hand, my secondary target audience comprises of one, gamers interested in learning about other cultures, and two, game developers to hopefully teach them about meaningful representation. So, the video game industry is no stranger to the perpetuation of harmful racial stereotypes, often shaping how minorities see themselves. My proposed solution asserts that culturally aware games offer players the opportunity to engage with authentic and respectful portrayals of diverse ethnicities. By doing so, these games can challenge and counteract the stereotypes reinforced through the medium. So here's a look into my preparation slash process. With game development, you really can't plan for a lot of things that pop up, such as bugs and that kind of stuff. So I kept it kind of loose. So if things like that do pop up, I'm more flexible with my schedule. However, I did keep it somewhat rigid, and so I have something to follow, a schedule to follow. So I'll be working on this over the summer. My pre-production phase, which will be from late May to early August, I'll be creating the narrative and game design document, and this is where I want to define the core themes I want to cover. And during this time, I'll have to choose an engine, a game engine, and then I like familiarize myself with it. Sorry, and then I'll be identifying needed assets and creating mockups, and then write the script for my narrative paths. My production phase, which will happen in the bulk of the semester from August to mid-November, I'll be importing the script into game engine, building dialogue trees, branching logic and variables, and then integrating finished assets, which are sprites, backgrounds, UI, music, and sound effects. For assets that I'm not able to make myself, like the music, I'll be looking at open source places like Open Game Art. And basically, this time will be for me to basically implement everything. And then my post production stage, which will happen from late November to December, I'll be conducting multiple playtests with Filipino and non Filipino playtesters. This will also be happening during the production phase, but it'll be more frequent in the post production stage. And I'll be collecting and implementing feedback between each playtest. And in the end, I'll refine and then present. So my primary deliverable will be a 2D pixel art visual game demo, visual novel game demo. Ideally, this would have at least 15 to 30 minutes of playtime that covers one narrative chapter. And drawing from my own experiences as a Filipino American, I aim to create a game that thoughtfully captures this cultural identity. And I hope to create characters that represent real Filipino and Filipino Americans. My secondary deliverable will be a fleshed out game design and narrative document that lays out the mechanics and the story not covered in the game. And this will include things such as character profiles, story arcs, etc. I actually took inspiration from a recent game that just came out, I think last year, called Until Then. It's pictured top right. And that this is the game that really kickstarted off my the idea for my presentation and for my deliverable. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?